Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to today's session. How are you doing? I pray that all is well with you and your family at this time. So we're continuing with our wonderful study of inspiration during this COVID pandemic, and we're using the text of Bhagavad Gita, studying the dilemma that Arjuna had just been through as a warrior, as a soldier, using his vocation now to fight against his own family people, something that he never thought he would have to do. And Krishna, sitting on his chariot as Rishikesh, is trying to guide him. Rishikesh is the lord of the senses, and the king of the senses is the mind. So Krishna is now going to try to help Arjuna's mind as Gudakesh, the one who has the strongest mind, who has conquered sleep. So the contest is on. The contest of life is on. Krishna, as the mentor of Arjuna here, is trying to make him understand the principles of life. There is no physical or subtle change in Arjuna, but what he's going to change is his spiritual foundation. So we see Krishna is trying to establish him on the spiritual platform, because we were discussing if you build your identity from that platform, then you can work towards your purpose. And once you work towards your purpose, then whatever events come in your way, they are there, they're significant, but they don't overpower you. Why? Because you have your purpose. So this is the goal of spirituality. It's giving one a foundation that is more solid. It's a rock foundation. It's much more solid than the mind and intelligence, and it's much more solid than the gross body. So Krishna is trying to encourage Arjuna from where he is right now, as we processing with verse number 10. Tam uvacha rishikeshaha prahasana niva bharata senayor ubayor madhye visidantam idam vachaha. So the translation: O descendant of Bharata. So when we see the Bhagavad Gita, that honorific was used mainly for Arjuna. Krishna would use that, O son of Bharata. But we see today's verse, Sanjaya is speaking, and he is using that honorific to address Dhritarashtra. So he's addressing Dhritarashtra because he's remote viewing the Kurukshetra battle, and he's telling Dhritarashtra, the blind king, that this is what's happening there. So he's speaking again today, and he's telling Dhritarashtra that this is what's happening. But look at how he's honoring him. He's saying, O son of Bharata. So he's also telling Dhritarashtra that, listen, you are also part of this great heritage of illustrious disciples and teachers who have come from the Aryan culture. But look at how you are thinking now. We discussed yesterday, Mamaka Pandavas Chaiva. You are only seeing what is Mamaka and Apka, yours and mine. You are seeing differentiation. So if that's the level of your consciousness now, indirectly Sanjaya is saying to him, hey, Dhritarashtra Prabhu, please consider, the way you are thinking. Your consciousness has dropped. You are gone right down to the bodily level of consciousness. Actually, Sanjaya is in a very delicate position because he's subordinate to Dhritarashtra. So he has to be tactful. But at the same time, we see yesterday, Sanjaya is a devotee. Prabhupada was saying to us that he's going to now disappoint Dhritarashtra. So at heart, he's a devotee. He's also trying to tell Dhritarashtra, he says, hey Prabhu, Krishna is about to speak spiritual knowledge. If you're going to keep your consciousness on the bodily level, like you're doing right now, Mamaka Pandavas Chaiva, then you're going to miss the whole point. Reassess yourself. But he can't tell him directly because he's subordinate. So he indirectly tells him that by using, O son of Bharata. He says, remember your heritage here. Don't just connect yourself to where you are right now. And you coming in that line, and now Krishna is going to speak Bhagavad Gita, reassess yourself also. Then you can benefit too. But you can see Sanjaya can only do so much because Dhritarashtra becomes a bad example of hearing Bhagavad Gita. Why is that? Because he hears Bhagavad Gita but doesn't change his heart. Arjuna becomes the good example where he also hears Bhagavad Gita and he changes his heart. Hridaya Durlabhya, the weakness of heart. So everybody has this. Krishna acknowledges very early on this weakness of heart. So everybody has it. So who do we follow? Do we follow the mind like Dhritarashtra has done, the mind and the body? Or do we follow Krishna who is about to speak spiritual knowledge now? So Sanjaya is indirectly, see how deep the Bhagavad Gita is? So by using this name, Sanjaya is indirectly telling him, Prabhu, this is your last chance now, reset your mind. If you don't, you're going to miss this great wisdom that Krishna is going to speak now. So please reassess yourself. What a beautiful way to start. So the translation continues. At that time, Krishna smiling in the midst of both the armies. So when we see this, when we hear this, we think how insensitive Krishna can be. He is a friend of Arjuna, and here's somebody in grief, and you smiling? Wow! Don't be fooled, devotees. Krishna's smile is not ordinary smile. Just yesterday I did a Google quickly, and I found out there are 19 different types of smiles, and 6 of them are pleasant smiles. The rest of them, we won't comment. So there are 19 different types of smiles. So Krishna is using one type of smile. And why is he smiling? Prabhupada is going to tell us soon. But see Krishna's teaching technique. That if you're going to teach the process of life, then teach it where it really is. Out there in the battlefield of life. Right there in between the two armies. Sanayor Ubayor Madhye. We are reading that today. That right in the middle of the Sanayor, the both armies, Madhya, in the middle of the two armies, Krishna is speaking philosophy. Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita right there. Because if Bhagavad Gita is practical, you must be able to apply it right there where it matters, in the most difficult part of life. And we're seeing right now that Arjuna is at his ebb. He's right down and he's just broken by life. And this is when now Krishna starts to speak. So we see this smile also many times with our own spiritual masters, our Guru Maharajas. We're not able to communicate directly to them, or in a function, in a meeting, in a gathering, there's too many other people. But just one smile from him, isn't it? Just one smile and eye contact is enough to say, oh, Guru Maharaj, you acknowledged. You saw that I'm here and I'm trying, I'm struggling, but I'm still trying. I'm still crying and trying and going on. That's the process of life. So we see this subtlety as well, that just by smile, the Aryan culture is very refined, that subtle gestures have a lot of deep meaning. We see that with Guru Maharaj. I remember my senior godbrother, Sri Dama Prabhu, that he will just look at my Guru Maharaj and he would just know what's going on. And I would look at him and say, translate. Translate what's going on. What does Guru Maharaj want? Because when I'm looking, I'm not understanding. Because we're seeing, but we're not understanding. Pasyanti na pasyami. You look, but you don't see. So I'm looking and seeing, hey, what does Guru Maharaj want? And he's looking and immediately understands. So this is the depth, that when there's a deep relationship, when love is on such a deep level, then the communication of that is very subtle as well. Very subtle. You see that with married couples that are married for many, many years, that they don't talk much. I'm going to get in trouble now, But I'm making this point that they don't talk much, but the subtleties are there. They know how to read each other. They know when the other one is not feeling good. They know when the other one, what the other one needs. That just by the subtle gestures, just by a look, sometimes you just know what it means. And then you know the look as well. When the wife gives the look, the husband also knows, oh, okay, we're going home now, come on, let's go. So subtleties. So Krishna is using that. And Krishna is known for that. His subtleties, the way he deals with his devotees, very subtle ways, but very deep ways. And you can only deal like that when there's love, when there's a sambandha, when there's a connection of love already established. Then just by a look you can understand what's happening. So the translation goes on. Spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. So devotees, what we're going to hear from tomorrow onwards is a master class given by the Supreme Master himself, the Supreme Prabhu, Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Prabhu. Prabhu means master. So we're going to get a master class from the Bhagavad Gita on how to handle grief, how to handle the process of life. What we're also going to see is Krishna's teaching technique. There are many spiritual technologies that come through as spiritual tools of wisdom in order to understand and go through the process of life. So we're going to learn from Krishna how he assesses, how he is observing, and what is the panacea. What can we do? What is the hope? What is the way in which we transform our current situation? So right there, Senayor Ubayor Madhye, right in the middle of the armies, right in the heart of the battle, Krishna is going to pull Arjuna out of his trauma right there in the middle of the battlefield. This is going to be amazing, because if he can do that to the strongest mind, then there's hope for us. That means the message of Bhagavad Gita can work for us. Otherwise, what is the value of calling him Rishikesh and calling Arjuna Gudakesh? Rishikesh means Lord of the senses, and the king of the senses is the mind. So if Krishna can't control Arjuna's mind by his wisdom, then why has he got the title of Rishikesh? So you see how much is at stake here? It's not only to help a dear friend Arjuna out of the grief in the deepest moment of his grief in life, but also Krishna's reputation as Rishikesh, that you are Lord of the senses. Can you control Arjuna's mind by your wisdom? This is what the contest is all about. So let the battle begin. Let's see what Prabhupada has put in the purport. So purport. The talk was going on between intimate friends. So the word is intimate. That unless there's intimacy, why would you listen to somebody's wisdom? Unless there's a bond, there's sambandha, why would you listen to someone? It's not only that they're making sense, but you assess them, you observe them. What is their intention? Do they have malice? Do they want to hurt me? I'm already in such pain, and they're giving more grief by their guidance because they're making such strong statements. But devotee, please remember that Krishna and the spiritual master is simply trying to address your mind. If strong action is not taken on the mind, then how will the mind change? See how strong the mind is. Right there, Krishna is on the chariot and still it won't even look at Krishna. It's giving up on life. This is the mind. Unless the dosage is strong, how will the mind reform? How will you transform your life? So this is the intention. See the intention that's coming through. Because externally, if we judge, it looks strong, it looks harsh. That's why this word intimacy is so relevant, because unless you see that intention, that it's actually a gesture of love, then only the intimacy can be developed. And another powerful point about intimacy, it gives you a foundation to hold on to. It's a handle to life, because you know that somebody out there genuinely cares. The spiritual master genuinely cares. He knows that you could take it the other way. He knows that you could see it as an attack. Why are you attacking me? Why are you picking on me? He knows that. But because he loves at such a deep level of life, he's even risking that so that he can help you from where you are. Just think about that. Who else would do that? Everybody else is flattering. No, you okay. Carry on. No, you okay. Carry on. You're just not trying hard enough. Do it this way. You're not doing it that way. Everybody else is leading us down to oblivion. But this person, because of the connection, the intimacy of love. So Prabhupada goes on in the purport. Namely Rishikesh and Gudakesh. So this is the battle, devotees. The battle is between Gudakesh and Rishikesh. This is the process of life. The supreme spiritual master Krishna, Rishikesh, master of all the senses, master of the mind. And the contestant Arjuna, Gudakesh, the one who has the strongest mind and is now given up on life, given up on the process of life. So, let the battle begin. Let's see what Prabhupada says here. As friends, both of them were on the same level, but one of them voluntarily became a student of the other. So, voluntary submission. When we offer voluntary submission, we're offering a lot. We're literally offering our whole self to the person. So what a foundation of intimacy and trust has to be first built before this happens. Therefore, only until you see that can you understand that there's good intention behind it. That the guru, the spiritual teacher, the preceptor simply wants to help you at the level of the mind. The anger, the strong words, the direct wisdom is simply to address your mind. It's not to hurt you. It's to address your mind. We remember we discussed this. That's why Krishna said, "Oh my dear Arjuna." You remember in the earlier verses. Because he's saying, you are dear to me, Arjun, but your mind is now completely causing havoc in your life. So I have to address you very strongly. And that's why the relationship between spiritual master and disciple is very grave. Prabhupada makes that point here. Let's see. Krishna was smiling because a friend had chosen to become a disciple. So you can see, first there's friend, first there's intimacy. And we were discussing this, that we are so dependent on relationship and refinement of relationship. But because we are sentient, each of those relationships requires intimacy. So until there's intimacy, what will be the value of Krishna's wisdom? Because he'll be a philosopher. And he could be speaking just from philosophy that, oh, I think this is best for you. Just like the mind. What is the difference between Krishna speaking philosophy and the mind speaking philosophy? There's no difference. The difference is Krishna has intimacy with Arjuna. The mind doesn't have intimacy. The mind is separate, and and Arjuna, the person, has become a slave of the mind. Whereas Arjuna, the person, has an intimate friendship with Krishna. You see the difference there? So let's see what Prabhupada says here. As Lord of all, he is always in the superior position as the master of everyone. And yet, the Lord agrees to be a friend, a son, or a lover for a devotee who wants him in such a role. So again, devotee, this point of intimacy. Unless there is intimacy, everything else is just a philosophy. So when we're hearing classes, when we're hearing devotees, know that devotees have our welfare at heart. They're addressing our mind. They're not trying to hurt us. Please see that, devotees. Please see that. So Prabhupada goes on. But when he was accepted as the master, he at once assumed the role and talked with the disciple like the master with gravity. So you see, unless the foundation of intimacy is there, if we start showing gravity, then it's going to be hurtful. So Krishna is saying, Arjuna, I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying this to your mind. Because to address your mind, I can't treat your mind with friendship. It's not going to work. So we have to correct the behavior of the mind. That requires gravity. Do you see this, devotees? Let's see what Prabhupada says here. As it is required. So you see, Prabhupada is even saying, as a spiritual master, that my dealings with my disciples, it's a deep, intimate level of love. But when I deal with them, if I'm trying to teach them, I have to be grave. It's a thankless task of the spiritual master. But Guru cannot praise one. He always has to be correcting one. So Prabhupada goes on to say, it appears that the talk between the master and the disciple was openly exchanged in the presence of both armies, so that all can be benefited. So it's another dimension here, devotees, because when we look at our lives, we see that sometimes we are going through such difficulty, but it seems that God is not there. Have you been through that? Have you been through an incident in your life where it's so difficult, but it feels like God's hand is not there? Have you seen that, devotees? That in your life, you're going through such a deep level, you're going through such a deep abyss of pain and suffering and trauma, but yet you're doing all the prayers and all the connection to the spiritual level, but yet it feels like there's no help coming from there. So this is Prabhupada is saying that we don't know how Krishna wants to teach us. And in the Ramayana, I'm reminded in the Ramayana, there's this beautiful story of Jatayu, one of my heroes. Jatayu was the eagle who was killed by Ravana when he tried to help Sita. So when Ram and Lakshman come by, he was almost dying. And when Ram and Lakshman come by, Ram teaches this lesson of life. And he walks close by and he looks and he tells Lakshman, what is this creature like this? It's so deformed. It looks like it's beaten up. I can't even recognize what it is. It's covered with blood and it looks like it's got blood over its mouth. Could it be that this creature has eaten Sita? Now just see. And Lakshman says, I don't know, my lord, let's go and see. And Ram speaks this within the hearing range of Jatayu. And Lakshman is looking at this, and then Jatayu speaks. And he says, my lord, we who give our life for you, if you misunderstand us like this, then what is hope for us? If other people misunderstand what we've done for you and what we've done to connect to you as the process of life, and if you misunderstand our efforts, then what is the hope for us? What a deep expression of connection, of love. And Ram chooses Jatayu in his most helpless state to teach this lesson of life. So we're seeing that here also, that Prabhupada is saying in the open, Krishna is speaking. And why is he doing that? To teach the lesson to the whole world. That you see Arjuna now is completely down in the abyss of life, is completely distraught and traumatized. But I'm here on his chariot and I'm going to show you and I'm going to show the world that by my intervention in your life as my devotee, I'm going to take you out of your abyss and show the whole world who is the hero of Bhagavad Gita. So if we see the process of life, understand this principle as well. It's a very powerful one, isn't it? Let's see what Prabhupada says here at the end. So the talks of Bhagavad Gita are not for any particular person, society or community, but they are for all. So we can see the process of life is non-sectarian. This is non-sectarian wisdom. This is based on the Aryan culture, the culture that is based on self-realization, studying the process of life, connecting to the supreme level of consciousness.